Okay, we have a few more people voting, and we'll close it out here. So
Okay.
Add your vote, and then give you a couple more seconds here to.
Okay. Should we?
Okay, close it out here.
Yep.
And then we will share the results.
Fully automated, no, 46%, mostly manual, FileZilla, command line, and ad hoc scripts. Okay, that's a good audience to know. So your automation depends on you remembering the FTP password. Okay, great.
I mean, that's kind of what I expected was those two to be the top pieces there, the automated scripts and manual, which seems to be a lot of what most people do.
So thank you, Michelle, for the introductions and the bios and the poll. So let me, as I mentioned, I've been doing file transfers for over 26 years. The true automation expert, however, here is Rick with us. Rick has been doing this for years. He's done many customer engagements with deployment. Let's see how today webinar can turn your hope-based scripting model into a real automation and see how Go Anywhere can help. If you're the first time, if you haven't heard much about Fortra, Fortra is a cybersecurity company that also has a lot of IT automation packages. So at Fortra, we do a lot of, we live and breathe by automation. Fortra, we own a number of file transfer solutions, GlobalScape, Go Anywhere, File Catalyst. All of them have some automation pieces. And on top of this, Fortra also owns Automate, which is another automation product, automation platform. So yes, this is a topic that comes up often at Fortra, and we have to say that we're kind of good at it. So let me just let's go back to our expert here, because Rick is really our main subject matter expert here. And Rick, so how many migrations have you done in your life?
Well, at least one or two. No, I've been working on this particular part of it for the better part of maybe 10 years or so. So I'm looking at, I've already done several, probably somewhere in the 20s or 30 different migrations, different originations, meaning from original scripting, batch scripts, bash scripts, those kind of things, or competitor products, Move It, Axway, GlobalScape, all kind of different associated products as well.
Awesome. Okay. And what is, give me sort of the largest migration in terms of the number of scripts or automation workflows you had to migrate into Go Anywhere? And then give me also the sort of the smallest number and sort of an average number as well. So the audience has an idea sort of what is small, what is medium, and what is sort of big for us.
Typically, when customers come to us and they start talking about it, it could literally range from a couple of hundred, 200 or 300 or so automations that they're currently doing, to one of the largest is I've had a customer somewhere around 4,500 to 5,000 different automations. And another customer that I've been working with and talking to that could potentially be upwards of 10,000 or more. So there are potentials for a lot of things happening here. Your average, if I had to put an average on that between all of the different ones that I've had conversations with and started working with, probably somewhere between the 300 to 700 range, somewhere in that neighborhood is typical. So that way you basically are identifying specific automations. I need to go connect to JP Morgan Chase and grab some data and pull it back in. Or I need to monitor this back-end system, and if file shows up, I need to transfer them to whatever targets or stage them for customers to come in and pick them up. So again, it's all about the automation and actual movement within the system.
All right, and Rick, last final words before we jump into the slides and our stages. So we break our migration into essentially like 4 stages and I think 7 steps. What is the very first thing people should start thinking when they want to start moving to an automation platform with their scripts?
First is, and this is something that I run into with a lot of customers. A lot of customers use the concept of, well, I just want to move to automation, but they really don't have a predefined notion as to what it is they want to move to. They just know they want to automate everything. Well, that's a good, pie in the sky thing. But knowing what it is you have, am I on a Windows system, a Unix system, Linux system, IBM do I incorporate mainframe? Am I using the cloud? Am I moving my data to and from SharePoint or Google Docs or different things? Understanding your system, knowing what you need and knowing how you want to move that data, what is your source and what are your targets? I need to be able to automate that movement. And you have to understand your environment, your architecture, your setup, your communication, your bandwidth. All of these things are all items that you need to be kind of having in the back of your mind, because all of these things work together. You have to bring your network architecture together with your automations to make sure things are being done, moved, and processed on a timely fashion. Second, you need to know your data that you're actually moving. John, with your background coming from File Catalyst, you know that file sizes and movements and transfers of data is a big part of this, okay? Am I moving, less than 1 meg files? Or are they 5 meg files or 10 meg files? Or in some instances, am I moving gigabytes of data, which could come into play in associating this migration with a sister company of ours called File Catalyst, because that would actually help you speed that particular process up and move it along.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay.
I think the biggest thing to think about up front is your environment, what you have and what you're moving.
Okay, great. So I wanted to kind of stop you a little bit because we do have a number of slides on the planning stage, and I just wanted to talk about the sort of the 4 stages. And each stage, we have 7 steps, 4 stages. Some stages have 2, 3 steps. Some of them only have 1. Really depends where you're going with. It doesn't depend. It's really important to have a proper plan. So again, just remember that first we have to plan, figure out what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what are your goals. Second of all is the work. So plan the work your plan, do QA and testing, and then we're finally moving to production. So we're going to set a switch. So all of these stages have their own gotchas, and this is what we're going to talk about today. So let's move on to the first step. So this is exactly what Rick has been already talking about. So Rick, so here in the important part is to figure out exactly what you're trying to move, count how many workflows you have, and then what comes next.
Right. So again, when you get into this particular functionality, or you're wanting to move into the migration into an automated system, okay? First, go back and identify where you're coming from, and then go ahead and identify what you're wanting, what your end goal is. What is it you want to get into? Okay, identify your transfers. Where do they reside? Am I in the DMZ? Do I need to go out to the DMZ and get data and bring it back into my system? Am I in a private network? So it means everything's just being moved internally, and I want to automate moving everything from my internal system that's already secluded from the outside world. Do I need to connect to the cloud? Is there a specific connection and a movement into and out of the cloud or local network that I need to move data to and from? Again, this is just identifying what it is you need to do and how you need to do that. Make sure you understand where you're coming from. That's what that basically is, understanding. Most of the time, there are a lot of customers currently that use an installation in a DMZ server, and it exposes their data to that outside world. So somebody will sign on to their system and drop a file, and then every so often they'll go connect to that outside system and say, oh, if I've got a data, let me go grab it and pull it into my private network. Okay, that still exposes your data. So that's something, again, you're wanting to look at potentially getting away from, not leaving your data where it's exposed to the outside world, because anything can happen. Then you want to determine, what am I doing on my automation? Am I using a cron job? Am I using a task scheduler from Windows, Power Automate? Am I using work job schedule entry from IBMI. What am I using? And what's currently, can I take advantage of it? Can I still use it? Okay, is the product that I need to use, does it integrate with these outside processes? The answer there for Go Anywhere is yes, we do integrate with those additional products. And then you want to determine your current scripting. Okay, am I using Bash, Python, PowerShell? What am I using to actually move my data? What's automating that?
Mhm.
And this is where you need to take that into consideration, because can I convert? Meaning I want to pull all of this into a single unit where I can manage and have something locally to where when something goes wrong and I have to go back and do that research, I'm looking in one place instead of, oh, okay, let me go over here and look at my Windows batch files. Let me go over here and look at my Linux bash scripts, my PowerShells. I'm going to different locations and different logs. You want to automate that. Not to mention you want your automation to actually tell you when something goes wrong instead of it basically having to go search every day. Then you're looking at the potential of what's manual? Do I still need manual transfers? I mean, there are days that maybe your HR department needs to send something to ADP. So they're going to drag and drop a spreadsheet onto the screen and send it, or they have to run a batch script to go send files, and it has to be named something specific. Well, options exist that allow you to basically do that within Go Anywhere, where I could use a secure form or something like that to automate that, make it easier to manage, to trace and track, and actually know when something's moving from internal to external. So these are all things that you need to plan for. Is this currently happening within your system? Now, getting into something that you and I both have worked on, benchmarking. Okay, is what you're doing currently, is it happening the way you need it to? You're expecting to move data from server A to server B in 2 or 3 minutes, but it's taking 10 or 12 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. Okay, why? Can I grow? If I need to, my company needs to grow, will my automation system, my transfer system, will it grow with me? Or when do I hit that benchmark of, hey, I'm at a brick wall. I can't go any further because it's going to start getting slower if I continue adding to it. So now I have to actually plan for that. What is my goal? Do you want to be able to send 30,000 documents per hour? Do you want to send 1 million per day? What is your goal? What is it you need to do? So these are some things you need to plan for, but that also incorporates benchmarking the system to make sure that if it's set up with that environment, it will handle that transfer automation that you're trying to do. And then the last piece that we're bringing in here is just, what are my connection details? In other words, am I using SSH keys? Am I using IDs, passwords? What am I connecting to? How am I connecting? When am I connecting? How often do I connect? All of these things come into play as far as your environment and your architecture is concerned. Okay, when am I actually going to expect having issues? Or what happens if another server goes down? Who's going to manage those particular things? So now you got to look at your administration of the process, right? You've got to administer and put together the schedules and the monitors and the triggers and the association and the automation and the, all of the support that goes around your automation. So these are the things that you need to literally kind of have working in the back of your mind, or you start planning through to make sure that you're ready to actually get into the actual automation. Is all this making sense?
Yes, thank you, Rick. Just to add to this slide a little bit of information. So first of all, I see because there's so many, there's almost 60% of our attendees do manual transfers. So you're probably using a tool like WinSCP or FileZilla. These are open source file transfer products that we're very familiar with, of course, at Fortra. So just remember that if you want to move to automation, the handling of sort of errors or problems, it becomes a different issue. Right now, if you're manually moving this file, let's say for payroll every week with FileZilla, and something doesn't work, well, you see an error message in FileZilla and you can react to it right away. If it's automated, well, now you have to see some kind of a log or some kind of a warning message that something didn't work out. So remember that now you're sort of not working with current, present, what you see on the screen, but rather you're going to be looking at status logs, audit logs, reports, if everything was working fine. And this is how you're going to have to be troubleshooting this, is that you're going to be looking at what happened in the past, not currently. For those that are not familiar with WinSCP and FileZilla, these are like open source FTP client software. It's very similar. On the left-hand side, you usually would see your local file system. On the right-hand side, you would see remote files, and then you can upload or download it. Usually in our world, sometimes it's called a put and a get. So a put will put the file, and a get will download the file from the system. And for as far as the peak, I just wanted to, I had recently a client. It was actually a trucking company, and they were only doing maybe like 100 to maybe 100 file transfers a day, which was fairly low volume. But twice a year they would have a huge spike. I think it was around like Black Friday and Boxing Day, where their number of transfers was going into like 10, 15, 20,000 for those right around those dates. So yeah, it's fine that you only have 100 transfers a day normally, but now these peak hours completely changed the story on architecture, because now all of a sudden we have to build something that has to be much more resilient, and all of a sudden you're going to be putting 20,000 transfers through this workflow. So it's good to know your peaks, because your peaks can really skew the numbers from your average processes.
Absolutely.
All right, let's move on to the next stage here. So we know what you're doing right now, but the next question we usually like to ask is why you're doing it. So this is where we're going to take this back to sort of more your business owner or business units. Like, why are you doing this? And Rick, what do you have to tell us about sort of the business side of things when you're planning an automated system?
Well, at this point, once you know your environment, you know what you've got, you know how much you're moving, you know how many automations, the file sizes, things like this. Now you're getting into basically saying, all right, let me go look at what we need to grow. Okay, everybody's expecting their business to grow. Okay, we're going to go from 5,000 to 10,000 customers in the next 2 to 3 years, or we're going to go to 20,000, whatever your numbers are. So then you're looking at, hey, in today's world, I've got to secure everything. I've got to reduce the fact of how many people have to manually jump in and actually run something. I want to do that and automate and log and trace and track. These are all things that you're wanting to do. So now when you get into that planning stage, you need to start looking at what it is I need to build around within my system. How much is my company moving into the cloud? That's a major piece these days. How much is being run out of SharePoint, or how much is being run out of external factors that are not within your brick and mortar wall? How much is being done, that I have to connect to a cloud, or we have to permissions? Is that connection secured? Is it logged? Am I managing? Again, we're in the planning stage of literally defining what it is I'm doing. And then when I get there, am I going to basically just turn this one off and then turn this one on? Or am I going to literally take my time? I'm going to lift this one over here, move it over here, test it, verify it, then shut it down once I know it's working. Then I'm going to go back to the next one, move it across, and turn it on. Okay, I have never, ever, out of all the ones that I've done, been a fan of flipping the switch. Okay, I'm one of those that I don't want to say a few Hail Marys and toss a little monkey blood and say, God, I hope this works. Because there's always a typo, or there's always a problem, or there's always an issue, and something comes up. Okay, if I can work a few at a time, a handful at a time, 10 or 20 at a time, I get them up, I get them running. We have people verifying it from the business units and knowing that data is being moved the way it's supposed to. Fine, then I can leave those turned off, and then I can move on to the next group. It just makes it easier and less stressful to get it from your old system to your new system that way. but it also allows you to go back and identify all of these systems of your security. Okay, that's a major part of this. Okay, is my environment secured? Am I using SFTP, FTPS, HTTPS? Hopefully you're not using FTP. I'm not so sure, but there's a lot of people out there that are still using FTP. If you are, this would be a perfect situation to say, hey, we're migrating into something a little more bigger, faster, stronger, better, secured, whatever it needs to be. And that could be pulling off of the FTP environment so that you actually can control what's going on and not be exposed so much in that environment. But these are just areas that you can plan for, to know that when you make that change or when you make that step, these are things that you're going to want to address. Integrating with other systems, Jenkins, Jira, Salesforce.com, SharePoint. There's all kinds of things that are built out that you're probably going to need to start looking at. Hey, is my solution going to provide this for me, yes or no? Or how am I going to incorporate those particular pieces and the security? How am I going to handle those situations as they come into play?
And just from my own perspective, I like when we're at this business stage to look at the business impact. So for example, my use case with the trucks, if those files did not get transferred, the trucks didn't leave the yard because they just didn't know what to load in the trucks. So this is a very severe impact to the business, right? If you don't send that file, maybe the payroll doesn't go through and no one gets paid in the company. That's a very severe impact. So kind of having these file transfer workflows mapped by importance to the business and impact to the business also helps, because then we really know what's where to focus and what to go after. However, if you're sending, I don't know, if you're just sending a brand new some Word document to a partner for some kind of a future agreement, well, that's not business mission. It's not mission critical for the business, right? So you just have to be aware of that. And one more thing I wanted to mention about this is for performance. Remember that again, there's growth and there's those peaks, and it's usually those peaks that are very useful to know on the peak side. All right, let's move on to the next step. So this is where we are gonna really, now we know what you're doing, what your business is, what the business impact is, and now we're gonna sort of layer in Go Anywhere functionality. So this Go Anywhere is a full solution. There's a lot of options, a lot of features in it. And this is where we're going to layer in and start talking about Go Anywhere functionality that we'll be using for some of your automation and for some of your workflows. So this is a very important stage, because in this stage here, very often, Rick, right? Like we don't always have to follow the model that you had before, let's say the script model or the manual process. We can, as long as we accomplish the same task, but doing it slightly differently, is sometimes much more efficient and better for the future, right?
Absolutely.
So it doesn't mean we don't have to necessarily reproduce what you're exactly doing today. We might slightly change it because of Go Anywhere's tooling. So maybe just Rick, walk us through some of the features in Go Anywhere that are very important in this stage.
Well, at this stage, once you get past the planning stage of determining what it is you're doing, how you're doing, and which way you're going, okay, then becomes, okay, how am I going to make that happen? All right, if I was using a cron job, I'm going to move into schedules. But then again, I may be speeding things up or making things better if I use a monitor instead. That means I'm going to look locally or remote and say, hey, if a file exists, pick it up and move it. Or I'm going to go connect to JP Morgan Chase. If I find a file, pick it up, move it, and go get it. Logs, syslogs, authentication methods, admin versus users. In this instance, what we're looking at is, are you somebody that's going to sign on and actually upload and download and move data? Or are you an administrator that's actually going to be administering or building out these automations and functionality and providing the security? So keep in mind that Go Anywhere is actually, by inherent nature, a batch process. It's going to run in the background. It's going to look at logs. It's going to look at schedules and monitors and triggers, and somebody uploads and we're going to trigger on the receipt of a file, or we're going to trigger on the download of a file. We're going to actually sit down and allow you to run some kind of a job that says, hey, go look in this folder every 5 minutes, and if I find something, I want to pick it up and move it. Okay, or I need to run something once a month at the end of the month so I can process my end of month data. So I need to go move all this data. So again, it's inherently a batch process that's going to be running behind the scenes. Now, that's not saying you're not going to have some interactive functionality, which you can do using secure forms very simply and very easily, just running it out of your browser. But that way you could literally use a web client to sign on, drag and drop the file, upload, download, whatever you need to do, and move data and process data, and use the secure form to literally identify that, onboard new customers, onboard new clients, onboard new users. There's all kinds of things you can take advantage of there. Not to mention you have APIs, and that's what I was kind of alluding to when I was talking about the planning. How much do I need to connect to Salesforce.com or SharePoint or Jira or ServiceNow? All of these different cloud-based API, or even the IRS, okay? I need to sign on and send them a 1099 from my business. Loading these particular documents. Everybody has that REST post, REST get type functionality that they're building into, and that can be automated through Go Anywhere as well.
Okay, great, thank you. Just a reminder, if you have any questions about your current file transfer workflows or automated workflows, feel free to ask them in the go to webinar questions pane. And if you are interested in having sort of a small consult at the end here and ask Rick some questions, that's also available. We'll only take if we have a volunteer. Keep in mind that this is going to be public domain, so maybe don't tell Rick your FTP passwords today in front of the audience. But you know, you can ask very more generic questions and what to do. So now we're actually, this is where we're actually going to start moving from planning to doing. So now we're going to start our migration work. So this is what we call implementation stage, and this is where usually we get busy to, if it's an engagement with a customer, we will actually start doing the migrations. If you're doing it on your own, well, this is an implementation stage for you. So again, Rick, so this is in this case here, walk us through the process. Like what are you going to start building out, or what should be built out at this stage?
So at this stage, what we're looking at is basically taking what you currently have in your current business process and starting to ingest that into Go Anywhere. Meaning you have, let's say, 500 automations in your current system, and you have cron jobs. Okay, this was a system that I just got through doing a transition for a current customer, and they have all of these automations. Well, one of the things we can look at doing is ingesting that. We want to go look at those jobs, pull the information out of those bash scripts or batch scripts or cron jobs, whatever they are, and literally convert that into Go Anywhere, which multiple ways to make that happen. You can do it one-for-one, meaning I can go in every time I have a automation in my current system, I'm going to do that same automation and Go Anywhere. So I'm just going to set them up and run them one-for-one. You can actually set it up to do database or parameter-driven processing. Go Anywhere does allow you to do that. So then what am I looking at in my folder structures? I can actually maintain my same folder structure. But the question here becomes, do you really want to do that? Does it really matter? The key here is moving data. And at this point, what we're looking at is, how can I efficiently and controlled get my data from server A to server B and manage that process. But at the same time, I also want to look at error checking logic. Did the file actually get transferred? Yes or no? Did it get encrypted, decrypted, zipped, unzipped, encrypt, decrypt, sign, merge, whatever I got to do to the data? And then did it get to the source, to the target? Did I successfully get the data, decrypt it, and send it to the target? Yes or no? And if I didn't, am I getting those notifications? So in other words, I have to look at the whole process, the whole execution of this. And what triggered it? What made it happen? Did somebody upload a file and now I need to get it, grab it, decrypt it, and go place it on this backend system? Maybe there's some internal logic that I need to build into that. The file name needs to contain some kind of a sender code that I need to validate. Can I do that with my system? Can I do that in my batch script or my PowerShell script? I'm pretty sure you can. But that's something that you can build into the automation, validation. And that way I can look at what it is I need to do. The key is do I want to do that by parameter or do I want to do that by script individually? And again, that's what your decision has to be on this implementation side is, what do I need to do to move forward? The nice part about Go Anywhere is that resources, meaning FTP servers, SFTP, mailboxes, WebDAV, ICAP, databases, all of these things are what Go Anywhere determines as a resource. And you can define and process these resources with all of the credentials in one location so that you don't have to redefine that by automation. All you have to do is point to the resource and go. Because the user ID, the password, the access, the URL, the location, all of that stuff is already predefined in the resource. All you got to do is point to the resource and go and rebuild. Whereas if you're doing this in a batch script or a bash script or a PowerShell, normally you're going to have to recreate that information every time you go to use it. So it just helps with that transition and automation to predefine and utilize that information. And absolutely the last item here, the review documentation. Okay, always stop and look at what it is you're doing, set up your documentation, understand what your movement is, and make that happen. One of the current customers I'm currently working with, I have to admit, they're very astute with documenting what it is they do. And I love that because now they can go back and review it. They can say, hey, we need to add this particular feature. So they go back to their documentation, see where it adjusts. They adjust their documentation and move on. But that way, somebody coming in behind or if somebody's out, that documentation there is to help explain and show what needs to happen. Very crucial part of what you're doing.
Yeah, and especially if you look at all your file transfer workflows, if there's a lot of them are mission critical, not having this documentation can really leave you in a bind, right? So
absolutely,
that's an important one. And for the what also is worth mentioning here during the implementation, or maybe more on the planning stage, is that if you're running, let's say, your MFT on the cloud, on the cloud vendor, like maybe Windows Azure or AWS or Google Cloud Services, if you're running it on those Google Clouds, there's something called egress fees. So every time you move data out of those vendors, they charge you. It's maybe not a lot. It's maybe a penny or two per gigabyte. But now you have an automation platform that pushes a lot of data. So you have to be mindful of how much data you're going to be sending out of those cloud vendors so the costs don't balloon. So, right, you have to be just a little bit more mindful about this versus like maybe a regular like email on the cloud is perfectly fine. There's not much data flowing there versus something like a file MFT or managed file transfer server.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's move on to the next one is testing, validation, and user acceptance. So this is the QA testing stage. What are the sort of the most important points here, Rick?
Validation, accuracy. I mean, literally, you're looking at the fact that I just got through pulling something out of my old batch file or my old bash file or my cron job associated to run something. I've got it didn't go anywhere, and I need to validate that it's doing exactly the same thing my old system has been doing for the last 10, 15 years. But I'm looking at moving it into something new. Okay, first and foremost, yes, there's going to be nervousness. You know, the C-suites are going to basically be questioning things. Is it really doing everything? Can we do this? Can we do that? All of that's going to come into play. But yes, your validation and your notifications literally become something you really need to bank on. Am I getting error notifications? Does a file size meet what it's supposed to be? Does the naming conventions meet what I need? Am I getting what I need? If I have an error, what do I do? Okay, does my automation tell me how to handle that error? Or do I have to literally go look at a job log and sit down and try to figure out what happened and what I need to do to fix it at 2 o'clock in the morning when I'm half asleep? Or am I getting an error notification that says, I had a problem, I couldn't connect to this server, it was a password issue, unable to sign on, contact X, Y, and Z. Okay, the more detailed you can get in those error notifications, the better, because that's less time that your admins have to spend fixing, correcting, or putting it back in play. So that is something that truly comes into play here under the testing and the design stage in making sure that you're ready to go to move into production. If you're working, the way I look at things, I could care less. I'm an exception kind of guy. Okay, if you're moving data and you're moving from left to right or server to server or whatever I need to do and you're working, I don't need a notification to tell me you did your job. I need to know when something goes wrong, and I need to know now, and I need to know what the problem was so I know what to do to fix it, or I need to build some kind of an automation to say, let's make it happen. The other pieces that you're looking at is exactly what you mentioned earlier, John, the peak time and stress testing. Okay, how much of this is really going to be affected during a peak and how much is going to be affected during the low times? Okay, are there ways to determine when I need to put a process in play? Yes, there are. I can go back and look at how much is being run at 8 a.m. on Monday morning as opposed to, 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Tuesday. Those are things that have to come into play. And let's don't forget the one-offs do come into play. Okay, there's always going to be that automation that shows up that you have to do just a little different than everybody else in the group. Can you handle those, and how do you handle those? And that is something that Go Anywhere does really well.
Yeah, that's for the snowflakes or one-offs are usually more problematic, but you have to kind of be ready for it. Just to talking about the one-offs could look very differently for different people. So one-offs could be maybe more elaborate workflow before you transfer a file that has happened. Maybe you have to cross-reference against a database, information in a database, or maybe into another cloud service. Another one-off could be maybe just huge files. Maybe all your files are tiny, or maybe like under one or 2 megs, and then a one-off you have to send 45 gigabytes. Or 45 gigabytes to a partner that is across the ocean. And now that becomes a very, very different problem than sending your smaller files locally. So remember that it could be file sizes, could be more complex workflows, or it could be also the distance, because again, like the further you go with your file transfers, the slower the transfers usually get. We do have solutions also for that at Fortra. So just remember that the snowflakes could look very, very differently for different people, but there will be always either a size, distance, or more complex workflow. All right, let's move on to the next stage, Rick. How we're doing with time? 12:45. I think we're okay. We're doing okay. So this is the implementation stage, and this is actually where we're going live. So at this point, we've done our planning, we moved everything, and now this is just we're rolling out. So Rick, what should we watch out here when we're actually going live?
Again, this is going back to the fact of whether I'm going to just flip the switch and hope everything works, or I'm going to progressively just transfer everything from my old system to the new system. I truly believe that the progressive is your much better option, because that way you don't have as many potential options or obstacles to keep you from having a successful rollout of your system. So at this point, you're basically looking at that. Two things I would think about is always review and validate, meaning make sure things are working before you actually shut down the old system. But number two in this list is probably the more important on this, is make sure you consider and build in a maintenance window in anything you're doing. There's always going to be that time where you need to upgrade Go Anywhere or your OS from the system that you have it installed on. Or there's going to be something that's going to be a downtime. Okay, there needs to be a maintenance window built into that, whether that is me shutting down my monitors and schedules and triggers to be able to shut down the system systematically without losing data, without losing connections or moving data. There are always times that you need to do something. And if you don't build that window in, one of the big things we hear out of a lot of customers, especially our larger customers who don't think about this up front, we don't have a window. And if we shut it down, we lose money. Well, the potential is there for us to have a upgrade in place without shutting down the system, but that's being designed, developed, and put together with our development team, and I have no idea when that's going to be out. But in all essence, if you have a maintenance window, then you know, hey, I can always identify when that window is so that I can do some updates and validation. And making sure that my implementation is smooth and progresses normally. And when I need to make that update, I have that window to be able to go back and do that systematically without having issues. So these are the main things that you really need to look at when you get into that implementation, or not forget about it, at least anyway.
All right, great, thank you. And this is our final step. So now we're running into production. This is more of a continuous improvement, support, and deployment. This is where we're kind of just now enjoying our new automation platform, where no one has to come in at 8 a.m. to transfer a file with FileZilla. This is where Rick's team, the professional services team at Fortran, can be also very useful for this. So just maybe Rick, walk us through this final stage or step here.
Yeah, once you're up and going and you're working and things are slowly working, it's always a good thing to go back and monitor your logs or your system performance. Make sure things are running the way you expect. Maybe I need to tweak it. Maybe I need to only run 45 concurrent jobs instead of 50, because it makes it run that much quicker or smoother because of my memory, because of my CPUs, or because of my bandwidth that I have available. There are numerous things that affect system performance. You touched earlier on peak performance, stressing the system. Maybe I'm hitting or banging that stress, and maybe it's more than what I expected, or maybe it's less than what I expected. But this is just something you can actually go back and validate against. Looking at all the integration. Am I integrating with my other systems? CRM, Jira, ServiceNow, Salesforce.com. There's a plethora of different integrated features that are available in the marketplace within Go Anywhere to allow you to go ahead and make those integrations. But we don't stop you there. We literally give you the open book and say, hey, here's how you can go create your own if you want to create those own integrations. And Go Anywhere does open those doors and allows you to do that as a middleware piece to help you manage the movement of that data. Go Anywhere and Fortran basically does provide professional service packages and ongoing maintenance services to help you with that system. So you could, once you get up, get going, get established, and make things move, there's service packages, expert services where you can meet on a routine basis to help discuss, train, teach, learn, build, grow, ask questions, keeping your system up and running and maintaining it, but also having that one person at Fortran under the Go Anywhere umbrella to say, hey, this guy knows me. He knows my system. He knows what I'm doing. He's somebody I can talk to that gets to know me and understands my situation. We have numerous people that we do that with. A lot of my current systems, I meet with them on a regular basis. And that's what we talk about. Hey, how can I improve this? How can I make this better? Security's doing this. We did a scan of our system and we want to look at questions, or we have questions about the scan. All of these things are ongoing. They don't just happen once and you throw it in a corner and leave it alone. But it basically allows you to update and maintain and bang that off the door with somebody to discuss it and make it happen. And the last thing is, it'll also help you plan for those new capacity expansions, growth patterns, making things run quicker. The business unit comes out and says, hey, we want to be able to do X, Y, and Z. Okay, we can help you plan those out and we can actually make that happen. So there's numerous things that we can process and help you with there.
Exactly, and I mean at this point, this is just plan for the future, right? So it's at this point, it's you just should have a rough idea what it would take, let's say, to increase the number of transfers or maybe increase functionality. So this is what we're good with. So as far as I can see, there's no volunteers that wants to talk to Rick live with the audience here, which is fine.
I'm going to take that personal. Nobody wants to talk to me.
I see, Rick, I see a lot of questions about the gift cards, but I think the Rick is not in charge of the gift cards, so I'm sorry, Rick cannot send you a gift card for food. But I see only one question here. I see one of the questions I see here from the audience that came up is, what are the next steps? What should someone do if they want to? If they want to engage with Fortra Professional Services and to help them with the migration and automation.
If they have those questions, what I would probably do would be to contact and say, hey, contact Go Anywhere, whether that's your sales manager or whether that's directly to the support or the services team. You could contact us and say, hey, we've got questions about what we could do. How can we do this, or how can we get moving with it and make that happen? We can set up a discovery call. Hey, tell us what it is, or give you somebody to bang those questions off of. Hey, I've got X, Y, and Z. Can you give us what it would take to move into Go Anywhere, or the effort necessary? It's not a sales thing. This is a understanding what it is your system is and what you need to do to that system to make that move. And whether or not Go Anywhere would be that solution, which I'm confident it would be. And we've already been able to do that with multiple customers to make that move and to build in that framework of moving that data across. So there's all kinds of options to make that happen. But yes, you can always contact your sales manager and they can get you in touch with the services group or set up a discovery call to say, hey, I just want to discuss it and talk about it.
Exactly. Okay. So yeah, it could be your account executive, or it could be also if you are maybe working through one of the Fortra partners, you can ask them as well, and I'm sure they will put you in touch with maybe not Rick directly, because Rick is more on the service delivery side. He's really an expert on this. But if your use case is very pertinent, like very interesting or more complicated, I'm sure Rick will provide input and help out as well. Well, thank you very much, Rick, and thank you very much, Michelle. I think we're done with the webinar part. Thank you for everyone who attended. Enjoy your lunch, and that's it. Anyways, Michelle, maybe the last couple of parting with a few last words, or maybe Rick, you want to throw something? Go ahead.
Yep, I was just going to say, really appreciate your attendance, and there's a very short survey right after this ends. We'd love your input.
Absolutely. Let us know something, and if you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out. We don't mind having that discussion or helping you understand whether or not Go Anywhere is a good fit for you making that migration off of your manual process or your batch scripts and cron jobs and Windows schedulers and things like that. We'll be glad to have that discussion with you or help you migrate into something that's a little more manageable and easier to use.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care, everyone.
I gotta shut this down.